Good afternoon, White Level. This is our Wednesday Bible study for Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. And we're going to be picking up where we left off last week in 1 Samuel. I'm actually going to backtrack just a little bit, begin our reading at 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 1. It says, One day Jonathan the son of Saul said to the young man who carried his armor, Come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side. But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying in the outskirts of Gibeah in the pomegranate cave at Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men, including Ahijah the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord at Shiloh, wearing an ephod. And the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Within the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on the one side and a rocky crag on the other side. The name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other was Seneh. The one crag rose on the north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south in front of Geba. Jonathan said to the man who carried his armor, Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. And his armor-bearer said to him, Do all that is in your heart, do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul. And that's where we left off last week. Jonathan is scouting out this enemy garrison of soldiers. And now we're going to see Jonathan's plan. It says, Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, Come, let us go to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. Sorry, I already read that. Verse 8. Let's go to verse 8. Then Jonathan said, Behold, we will cross over to the men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say to us, Wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go up to them. But if they say, Come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand, and this shall be a sign to us. One of the amazing things in this text is just Jonathan's confidence. Confidence not in himself, but in God. It's something that his father Saul does not have. But it's something that Jonathan has. He has faith, true faith, which leads him to trust that God is going to work, that God is going to let him know. So he says, if they're going to come down to us, we'll hold our ground. But if they say, come up to us and fight us, then that's the sign that God is going to be on our side, and we're going to go up and fight them. And let's see what happens in the text. Verse 13, Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor-bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan and his... I skipped over a little bit. Back in verse 10. But if they say to us, Come up to us, and we'll go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand, and this shall be a sign to us. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, Look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves. The sort of taunting Jonathan and his armor-bearer here. Verse 12, And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor-bearer and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. In other words, we're going to show you exactly how powerful, exactly how strong we are. Now, this is not the entire Philistine army. This is a garrison of soldiers that Jonathan has spied out. It says, Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, Come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor-bearer after him, And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer killed them after him. And after that first strike, which Jonathan and his armor bearer made, killed about 20 men within, as it were, half a furrow's length in an acre of land. So, in other words, he just slaughters 20 men, 2 men, Jonathan and his armor bearer. And remember, Jonathan has a sword, but his armor bearer does not. Because the only 2 people that had swords were Jonathan and Saul. So his armor bearer is, of course, his job is to bear the armor of Jonathan when he's not in battle. And so these 2 men kill about 20 men. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because God won this battle, not Jonathan. Because God is sovereign and is supreme, and he's going to win this battle. And all Jonathan had to do was show up and be faithful. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled. The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. So right at this moment, when Jonathan is slaughtering this garrison of 20 or so soldiers, him and his armor bearer, the camp that is of the whole army that is located near there, it gets into a panic. They hear this fighting going on, and there raises up this sort of panic. In addition to that is right at that moment, there's an earthquake. Earthquakes are strange experiences. I remember, I guess about 10 years ago, there was an earthquake in Washington, D.C. And I felt it where I was living at the time in Grifton. And I'm sure many of you felt it here. And I'd never been through one before. I never felt that before. And it is a very disquieting feeling. The earth beneath your feet just rumbling and moving almost as waves. I had no idea what had happened. No idea. I thought, I was living in the East at that time, and every now and again there would be military aircraft that would fly over at very high rates of speed and sometimes almost shake the house. Thought maybe that was it. I had no context in my mind for this. And when it happened, I'll have to admit I was a little bit terrified. Imagine that happening right in the midst of you hearing a battle is coming. You hear some fighting. You're in an army. You hear some fighting at a little bit of a distance away. You hear the screams. You hear the metal swords clanging against each other. And then all of a sudden, there is this massive earthquake. No wonder they're scared. Not only that, this text is going to tell us that God is actually going to drive terror into the hearts of the Philistines. Verse 16, and the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. In other words, they're watching out for the enemy army. They're in a desperate situation. Remember, they're outnumbered 10 or 20 to 1. They don't have the same weapons. It's like I said last week, it's as if the other side has jet airplanes and they're fighting on horseback. There is a major technological distance between the Israelite army and the Philistine army. There's no reason why the Israelites should win. And yet, the Philistine army is in their fear, in their panic. They're dispersing. They're running all over the place. They're disheveled. They're disorganized. It says, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. Verse 17. Then Saul said to the people who were with him, count and see who is gone from us. And when they had counted, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. So Saul said to Ahijah, bring the ark of God here, for the ark of God went at that time with the people of Israel. Now while Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand. Sorry, I had an interruption there, so I paused the video recording and hopefully can pick back up where I was. But it says, withdraw your hand. Now what's happening here in this text is that Saul hears the enemy army in complete disarray, scattering before him. And he realizes he has an opportunity. He has an opportunity to get a great victory at little cost. Because in their disarray, they're not arranged for warfare. They're not arranged and ready to attack. They probably don't have their swords and their shields ready to do battle. Their chariots aren't ready.